The following is an exclusive production of Minuteman Command. The Flagship Pod with your hosts, ESPN personalities Mike Corey and Rene Ingoglia, is on the air. Brought to you by Todd Fritz Roofing, with insight and info from UMass and Mac Insiders. From the Command Studios, here are your hosts, Mike and Rene.
Folks, welcome into another edition of the Flagship Podcast. Obviously, I am not Mike Corey. Christian McCollum here, filling in for Mike. With Rene, glad to fill in where I can, Rene. Thanks for having me.
Listen, for everyone out there, Mike, so in typical Mike fashion, and I love dogging Mike because he's one of my best friends. I've known him forever. He had a guy's trip planned forever to go golf. He's in Florida right now. Forgot to tell us and just sprung it on us, but I was like, that's all right. We'll get Christian to jump in. So boom, pinch hit quick. Christian's here, and it's going to be a good pod. So Mike's, listen, he just moved. A lot of stress in moving. Not only did he move, they remodeled the house they were moving into, so add stress, but he's in it now. Everything's good. So yeah, he's relaxing with his buddies, his lifelong college buddies. And so hopefully he's hitting it straight.
Yeah, well, I'm just glad that I was able to join. Rene, this travel baseball has dominated my life for the last 3 weeks. It's insane. I'll be honest, I kind of love it. I love being at the games, and I love the team. I love my son's coaches, the other parents, the other kids. But, man, the travel is killing me, dude. So,
been there, done that. Mine was obviously travel soccer, and it does. If your kid plays a sport where they play in the summer and play kind of, a club team, get ready to travel. And it is great, but there comes a point, and you're going to get there, Christian, where you're like, God, I can't wait for it to be over. And I remember when it ended with my kids and, it went on to college and so forth. But listen, enjoy it. It's awesome, but it does take a toll on you for sure.
Yeah, I think I hit that point yesterday when I was driving on 84 back, my fourth straight day, driving back and forth from Springfield, Mass to New London, Connecticut. I've got to haul the little ones with me this day. It's just my eyes are stunned. I think that was my point. So, but what's the latest in your world, Rene?
Yeah, just listen. I've said in the last couple of podcasts, I took a job with FIFA. So the FIFA World Cup club is in the United States, and Orlando's a host city. So it was 22 straight days with no days off. Still going. We end Friday. We end on the 4th of July. We'll be done, and then I think I mentioned on the pod too. Then we have a vacation plan. So we're going on a cruise. We leave Sunday the 6th. So I planned, Christian. News to you. I told Mike I plan on doing the podcast from the cruise ship, but man, now I'm to the point where I'm kind of like, you know what, Christian may be pinch hitting again. So I don't know. We'll play it by ear. I got the internet package, so I'm not worried about that. I just don't know, what's going on, but we'll see. We'll play it by ear. But yeah, so been working. It's good because I'm retired from law enforcement, so I'm just kind of like sitting around twiddling my thumbs, waiting for college football season to start. So I get really anxious. And then, of course, this spring, Christian, ESPN, we didn't do any spring football games. That usually gets my itch a little bit. I do a spring game, knock the cobwebs off. Well, no spring game this year. Obviously, we went up to the UMass spring game, which was nice. So when the opportunity came to work for FIFA, based on my law enforcement experience, I jumped on it. And I said, let me do it. So it's been great. It's been rewarding. But from there, like I said, 7-day vacation. And I mentioned this on the pod. When I come back, I only have 10 days, and then I go up to Charlotte for the American Athletic Conference media days. I work for the conference, so I usually do their media days, and then they usually do a show for their championship game. So I'm excited for that. Got some new coaches in the American, and I believe the American media days is the exact same time MAC media days are. So, and I got to check it. I mentioned in the pod last week. My friend and colleague, Dustin Fox, usually does the media days for the MAC. So if he does, we'll have him on the pod and after those and get a rundown. But yeah, so I say all that and saying like, crap, it's here, man. It's like, it's time to go.
Well, July 1 is when we're recording this podcast. Come out July 2, but obviously July 1, a big day, official day. It's no big news, but it's, official day. UMass is now in the MAC. I mean, it is official now. it's obviously been coming, but now we're here.
Well, and it's all sports, so that's the biggest deal, right? I mean, we were in the MAC for football before, but it just feels different. It really is. It's a new page for UMass athletics, and like obviously I'm on X a lot, and I got a lot of, and thank you guys, a lot of great feedback on X, and listen, I get it. I see the people on X that don't want to be mad about it. They want to be supportive, but they're diehard A10 fans. So you understand it's a breakup, right? That's a 50-year breakup. But guess what, guys? UMass isn't the only school. This is right, wrong, or indifferent. This is what's happening in college sports. Teams are moving conferences. Some teams are moving 2 conferences, 3 conferences. So you just got to position yourself the best place you can. And it's no secret, football's driving that bus, right? Basketball's on it, but football's driving it, those 2. And then you just try to do what's best for the rest of your athletic department and then revenue-wise. And so it's the right move. But I do understand, the feelings that a lot of people have. But for me, it's a new page. Turn that corner, and man, I am ready to go. I am excited. And so, and me and you are going to get into it, and that's a perfect segue for the pod this week. We want to talk about, because it's not just UMass. July 1 was big. There's been realignment already. Teams talking about teams moving. We got some new teams moving. Some of it affects the MAC. So a lot going on in the world of college athletics, particularly college football, because that's kind of, let's not fool ourselves, that drives and spurs all these moves.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it was on the pod the first time I heard about Texas State, all the moves that's going on with that. And like you said, this is all driven by football, and even more granular level, it's driven by TV and TV dollars, right? So that's what it's all coming down to.
So let's start there. So for a lot of people that may not know this, we're going to get in the weeds just a little bit. We're just going to cover the group of 6. We're not going to get into the power conference. I think Christian might have a little tidbit for us during this pod on some power conferences. So we'll touch it a little bit, but for the majority of the pod, it's group of 6. Now, some of you are saying group of 6, what does that mean? So if you remember, we've always had the Power 5 and the group of 5, right? For those who don't know, those were just kind of made up names. Okay, there's nothing official. Mm-hmm. But what was official? It's technically it was the autonomous 5. So the Big 5, big time programs, the SEC, the Big 10, Big 12, ACC, and Pac-12. They had autonomous status. What does that mean? Basically, because they made a lot of money and they were bigger conferences, the NCAA gave them. I don't want to say different rights, but they had more ability than the other 5 conferences. So the media kind of ran with it and went with Power 5, Group of 5. When the Pac-12 imploded, okay, they lost that autonomous title. So that is gone. So that's why now technically you will, even when the Pac-12 comes back next year, you're going to have a Group of 6 and Power 4. Who knows what the media will call it. So for those that don't know, and Christian mentioned it, Texas State, as of this pod, has officially left the Sun Belt and is going to the new Pac-12. That conference starts not this year, but next year. So Texas State will play this last season in the Sun Belt and then go to the new Pac-12. Why was July 1 important for them? Because their buyout to get out of the Sun Belt was $5 million. If they did it after July 1, it was going to be $10 million. And you say to yourself, okay, it's not a power conference per se. Why are they making the move? Well, let's look. I did some research. So Sun Belt, which to me is very comparable to the MAC, their TV deal with ESPN pays each school about $2.5 million. Sun Belt, nice little payout. The new Pac-12, okay, which now, and that's the other reason Texas State, they needed 8 football schools, okay? They had 8 schools. Gonzaga doesn't play football, so that's why it was really important that they got that 8th football school in Texas State. They just signed a new TV deal. CBS just signed them through 2031. They're estimated to make between $7 and $10 million a school in the new Pac-12. The American, which I think a lot of people could argue is the best group of 6 program, the conference, they make roughly $7 million a school. So they're right in that area. A little bit more, right? But it's interesting, right? Because the new Pac-12 tried to get the top schools from the American. They tried to get Memphis and Tulane. Their buyout to get out of the American was huge and they were only going to make a little bit more money. It did not make sense for any of those schools to leave and go to the new Big 12. Now you're saying, or Pac-12. You're saying to yourself, well, who is the new Pac-12? So it's the original two that got left behind, Oregon State, Washington State. They took Boise State from the Mountain West. That's a home run. I mean, that's arguably the best free agent school, you will, first-round pick out there. So Boise State, home run from the Mountain West. They get Colorado State from the Mountain West, Fresno State from the Mountain West, San Diego State from the Mountain West, Utah State from the Mountain West. They pillaged the Mountain West. And then Texas State from the Sun Belt. That's going to give them their 8 football schools. And we talked about Gonzaga there for basketball. So a lot going on there, but they're all set to start their new Pac-12 next year in 2026.
Yeah, and like you said, Rene, it's there's no perfect solution to all of this realignment, right? When you got money's driving it all, and every school has to kind of do what's best for themselves, or look, get left behind. And for fans that are out there that don't love it, I totally understand it. I mean, you're running through those Pac-12. I'm pretty close to this stuff. I follow it on a day-to-day basis. There's no way I could have rattled off all those schools. I'm like, oh yeah, that's new Pac-12, and it's just really, really difficult for a fan to follow. So. We get that. We understand that. But like you said, in UMass's situation, they have to do what's best, and there was no perfect solution. Staying in the A-10 wasn't the best solution, even though leaving the A-10 is not perfect either. Yeah.
And we all know when realignment happens, there's dominoes, right? So Texas State leaves. So now Sun Belt, you're up. So obviously Texas State will be there this season. They're at 14, okay? When Texas State leaves next year, they'll drop to 13, but they're in no hurry to fill that. They can stay at 13. They can kind of watch and see what happens. The reporting out there is Louisiana Tech, who's in Conference USA, really wants to go in. They're in the Sun Belt footprint. Louisiana's already in the conference. It's basically would be they're right there. You're asking about money for Conference USA. Out of the 10 conferences, they get the least amount of money. They get about $800,000 a school. Conference USA with their contract with CBS and ESPN. Okay, the Sun Belt, we talked about it, $2.5 million. So no doubt Louisiana Tech wants to make that jump if the Sun Belt will take them. But Sun Belt isn't in a hurry. They can kind of sit at 13. Now this affects UMass too, because and we'll get to it. So let's go through the Mountain West, because I just talked about the Mountain West getting pillaged by the new Pac-12. So what did Mountain West do? So they were able to keep UNLV, Dan Mullen, new coach there, home run. So UNLV, I think, is now, with losing Boise State, I think UNLV is kind of like that face of the Mountain West, right? So they keep UNLV, keep Wyoming, good program. San Jose State, Air Force, another great one to keep. Hawaii stays and now is a full-fledged member of the Mountain West. A lot of people didn't know that. Hawaii is now in every sport in the Mountain West, kind of like UMass made the jump into the MAC. Nevada, New Mexico, and then they add Northern Illinois from the MAC. They'll play in the MAC this year, but next year in the new Mountain West, Northern Illinois gets there. And then UTEP from Conference USA. It's a home run for UTEP because they're kind of in that footprint in Texas, El Paso. They know a lot of those schools. And again, they're making $800,000 Conference USA money. It's going to go up. In Northern Illinois, I think it shocked a few people because the MAC is so steady. And the MAC, and if I didn't mention it, the MAC is about $2.5 million a year per school with their ESPN contract. And you correct me if I'm wrong, Christian. And I believe UMass for the first year, this year in the MAC, they get 75% of that. So they're going to get about $1.5 million, and then next year they get a full share. But of course, UMass wasn't making any TV revenue because they were an independent. So Northern Illinois leaves for football, okay? And I get it. They're in the Midwest, so travel's not crazy. But this is where the fascinating, interesting stuff happens now. So I just told you the Pac-12 has a brand new TV deal that they just did, getting ready to launch in 26. Well, the TV partner for the Mountain West, okay, it ends this season. Okay, it's the last year. So it's a CBS Fox deal that was paying them about $3.5 million per school, right? So about $1 million more than the MAC, $1 million more than Sun Belt. But now you see why all those Mountain West teams said, well, let's go to the new Pac-12, and they did. They all more than doubled their TV payout, right? Because we know what their new deal is. So the interesting thing is, and again, there's dominoes to everything. because CBS signed the Pac-12 to a new deal, okay, starting in 26, it's going to go from 2026 to 2031. They're the main partner with the Mountain West this season and Fox, but that contract ends this year. So a lot of people think, man, they just signed a new deal with the Pac-12, the new Pac-12. They may not renew. If you look at X and you just kind of read stuff, a lot of people think ESPN will enter back in along with TNT, who was a partner with ESPN this year. So if you guys remember, TNT had some first-round college football playoff games. And what that is TNT basically bought those games, sub-licensed them, if you will, from ESPN, but ESPN produced them. So it was ESPN talent, it was ESPN production. So I could almost see if ESPN and because TNT wants to get into the college sports game in football. And they, for those that are my age, if you remember, TNT used to have college football. So it's not like, brand new to them. But if they do get in, I could see them going after the Mountain West. And same thing. They're buying it. They're making a deal with ESPN, and ESPN produces it and sends the talent. So really interesting there with what's going to happen with the Mountain West contract. But again, we talked about it. It's about money. Mountain West making $3.5 million this year, so per school, but you lose a lot of your good schools. So the market's already dictated, right? And let's not forget, this is what happened to the Pac-12 originally. ESPN had offered them an amount, which I think was pretty good. They said, nope. They went in the market, and the market fell. And then everyone said, I'm out of here. Everyone went running and jumping. Getting back to the MAC, they're going to be at 13 schools this year with UMass. When Northern Illinois leaves next year, they're going to be at 12. So, again, the MAC's very steady. They don't have to do anything, but there's no doubt all these conference commissioners now and the school presidents, everyone knows you have to be proactive. You have to be on your toes. You can't be flat-footed. So you always got to be looking. I did 2 games there last year, and I've said this before. Western Kentucky is in the MAC's footprint. I always thought that would be a great addition to the MAC. But you just never know. Once the dominoes start, and again, Texas State was the one that fell here. And so we'll see. But yeah, so you saw the TV money we talked about. Just to recap, Pac-12 new deal starting next year, about $7 to $10 million a school. Okay. Again, that's about where the American is. The American's ESPN deal through 2031-32, $7 million. Mountain West, $3.5 million, but it expires after this season. We just talked about that. Max about $2.5 million per school. Sunbelt about $2.5 million, and then Conference USA about $800,000. So that kind of gives you the money lowdown in TV payouts for the group of 6, and why you see this domino of, okay, I'm going to leave. I'm going to try to position myself for the future.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a domino effect, and it starts at the top, right? And right now the top is the Big Ten and the SEC. You talked about having the Power 4 conferences. What are they going to call them? I've seen people call them the Core 4. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Power 4. But right now the Big Ten and the SEC are up there, and they're just juggernauts. They're just battling. And you talk about being proactive. You look at the other 2 teams there, other 2 conferences there. You're talking about the ACC and the Big 12, right? The Big 12, they suffered a big blow when they lost Texas and Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Texas to the SEC. And the ACC's kind of, their big thing that they have the other schools don't have is basketball, with schools like Carolina and Duke. So those conferences need to be proactive. I have, a source that I trust. And we've talked a lot, and he's always told me the next domino to fall that would make everything go is Clemson and Florida State leaving the ACC. And they both tried to leave the ACC recently. Now the ACC, they came up with some kind of settlement with the ACC's TV package was pretty bad. But they came up with a new deal to keep Florida State and Clemson happy. And I'm not saying this is going to happen. It's just something that my source speculated recently, was saying, don't be surprised if Clemson and Florida State bolt the ACC to the Big 12. That would bolster the Big 12, decimate the ACC. Maybe the ACC, maybe what do you do if you're Duke and Syracuse where you're mostly kind of basketball programs. You know, the dollars are still there for football, but maybe they kind of recreate the Big East for a little basketball only. So fans that can't keep up with this, it's not over, even if it's kind of calmed down here for a little bit. And that impacts everybody else.
Oh, absolutely. And I will say this, Brett Yormark, the commissioner for the Big 12, he's a wheeler and dealer. There's no doubt about it. Talk about staying on your toes. I mean, he's stealing second. Like there's no doubt. And you mentioned it. This was all predicated by Texas and Oklahoma making the move to the SEC. It started it all. And the amazing thing was that they were able to keep it quiet as long as they did, right, until it broke. And then that started it all because everyone was caught flat-footed when that happened.
Yep.
They were the SEC and those schools were being proactive, and then it forced everyone else to do it as well, which you have to be. So just so people know, the ACC payout per school right now is about $45 million. Okay. The Big 12 payout per school is just a little under $32 million. But if you flipped, if you took, Clemson, Florida State, some of those big schools, it's just all negotiation. It's what do the TV networks believe those programs bring, in eyeballs. So it's crazy right now. And listen, it's not over. It is absolutely not over for anybody. And these conference commissioners and these school presidents, they're constantly looking to get their best foot forward. So just hold on. And I agree with you, Christian. Like, my wife's a diehard college football fan, and this part of it bothers her. The transfer portal bothers her. The NIL, which is now July 1st. So, by the way, it's official. The House settlement, the revenue share started July 1. That bothers her. But she's a purist. There's a lot of purists out there, right? I was a purist too. But, guys, things happen. Time goes on. Things happen, and you got to go with it. Otherwise, you're just going to be miserable. The one thing, though, that to me never changes is the kids are getting out there and competing, and it's still great football each fall. I don't care what conference it is. So that part of it at least is reassuring.
Yeah. It's a bit of a prisoner's dilemma for these conferences. You know what I mean? They if everything stays the same, it's good. But if someone else changes something and you're not the one to change it, it's not so good for you. But one thing I want to ask you, Rene. So
yeah,
Northern Illinois is attractive. They get pulled to the Mountain West. How much of that do you think is attributed to their win over Notre Dame last year, kind of getting like out the forefront and just being big? I
think it helped, but Northern Illinois has always been a program that's been there. It's been a good program. It's always been kind of at the top of the MAC. We talk about it. The MAC always has 5, 6, 7 schools that kind of rotate and win the MAC championship. And Northern Illinois is one of those schools that can step up and beat a Notre Dame. So yeah, it definitely played a part. There's no doubt about it. But it's an interesting move, and obviously it's just a football-only move. And obviously it's for money. It's to get that better position. But it'll be interesting when it plays out. And again, the moves aren't over. There's no doubt. There's going to be more stuff going on. And we're just got to sit back and wait and see. So the one thing I was going to say that you made me think about it with the conferences, because there's no doubt when a school bolts, right, from one conference to the other, I'm sure it pisses off the commissioner, right? But it's almost like the transfer portal, because remember, Christian, and you report on it, so kids were going in the portal and coaches were getting mad, taking it personal, right? Coaches don't do that anymore. They know after a couple of years, they don't take it personal. They understand. A lot of coaches, when players go to leave, they actually help them. Yep. They help them get to the school they want. They help them get the revenue share NIL deal that they deserve, right? That maybe their school can't pay. They understand that. And conference commissioners, I think, are probably coming to the realization that if another conference is better for whatever reason for a school that happens to be one of your members, you got to let them go. It's just the way it is, And the dominoes fall down right hill because one school leaves your conference and goes to another, you're gonna take another one. And, a conference that I don't even want to say reimagined itself, but just kept their head down and kept moving is the American. And I'm not just saying that because I've worked for them. Think about it. They were arguably the best group of 5 conference. Cincinnati made the college football playoff, right, when it was 4. teams.
Yep.
They lost their 3 best schools, right? They lost UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston. They didn't bellyache about it. Now they had to go get schools from other conferences, right? That's that domino effect I'm talking about. But they just again, not rebranded, but they just kept going. New schools, put them in place, and Tim Pernetti, the commissioner there, who took over from Mike Oresco, who I knew very well, and just kind of plugging forward. And you can't cry over spilt milk, right? You lose some programs, you go out and you try to replace them the best you can, what you believe is best for your conference, and you move forward. And, the addition of UMass to the MAC, it's a huge get for the Mid-American Conference. There's no doubt about it. Obviously everyone wants to talk about football. You're bringing in a football program that hasn't won in 13 years, 14 years, whatever it's been, right? But when you go to a conference like that in a whole, it's everything. It's every sport. And we know how good from top to bottom UMass athletics is, not to mention the academic prestige UMass brings into the MAC. And, oh, by the way, UMass is now the only flagship university in the Mid-American Conference. So great get for the MAC. There's no doubt about it. And I think it's really a really good marriage for UMass and the MAC.
Well, you talked about how the conference commissioners and the coaches don't get so upset anymore. It's like sports. It's adjustments. You got to adjust to what's going on now. The reason I asked you about the Northern Illinois is because I think that the ability to you can catch lightning in a bottle, so to speak, in college sports, right? And I think a lot of us believe that UMass football has the opportunity to do that with the new staff they have. And if we kind of play out the dominoes of conference realignment a little bit, let's say, I always thought it would be ultimately a Big 2 with Big 10 and SEC. Let's say it's a Big 2 or a Big 3, whether it's the ACC or the Big 12. And you say, oh, the ACC is dead. It's got to break up. It loses Duke, Syracuse. The old Big East gets put together. There's a basketball conference. A whole bunch of stuff starts swirling around. And now all of a sudden you have schools like Boston College, Maryland, Virginia, schools like that aren't necessarily going to be part of the Big 2 or 3. Now they need somewhere to go.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, if you're UMass and you've had 3 or 4 years of really solid football under Joe Harris-Simiak, all of a sudden you're a lot more attractive. Maybe there's a new conference that's born, and you're in that conference with BC, Maryland, Rutgers, Cincinnati, those schools. That's why I think this period of UMass athletics is extremely important if you look forward and start playing things out.
No doubt about it. And you hit it. You never know what tomorrow is going to bring. What we do know for UMass is there's a financial commitment for the football program and the athletic program in which we've never seen at the university. Okay, that is a fact.
Yep.
Second, they're going into a conference football-wise, right, which they haven't been in since they were in it last time, but they have something tangible now to really play for in a MAC championship. You're going to have common opponents each and every week, the scheduling. That's a fact. And you have a legitimate chance now to get into a bowl game. It's things that just weren't there as an independent. And to your point, this is a very vital time for UMass athletics and UMass football in particular, and UMass basketball as we roll in the basketball season. So I'm excited. Some people reached out to me on X and said, man, your optimism is contagious. And I'm glad, because what I do on this pod is how I feel. I really do. And, guys, this is going to be my 16th year with ESPN, right? Excuse me. I love UMass athletics. I bleed maroon and white as I'm dying here. Don't think for a moment, when I'm in a broadcast booth, right, for 16 years, and, my partner, everyone knows I played at UMass, and it hurts, right, when the program isn't doing good. So, it's just, I'm ready. I'm ready. And I just think, I really do. I really do think this year, and we've talked about it ad nauseum, like a 180 can be done. There's no doubt about it. And I just think this is the year. So I am excited. I'm optimistic. And I'm just ready to go. And before we jump off this pod, we got to give some kudos to our boys at the Curse of You, man. How great were they this week in the social media realm with their videos, with their memes. I mean, they were on it. So great stuff, guys. Keep it up. It was fun, kind of retweeting all their videos on X.
Yeah. I'm sure everyone that's listening to this probably already follows the Cursive Few, but if you don't, check out the Cursive Few on Twitter. They are on top of everything. Bunch of good guys over there that kind of like us, right?
Yeah.
UMass guys, like you said, bleed maroon and white. They're the same, so they have a great product and they love it. They love doing it. And, UMass fans are a passionate bunch. And you can tell that we have enough fair weather fans these days across sports. I give my friends down, I call them friends, I guess, down at UConn. They love the women's basketball team. Why? Because they win. You know what I mean? They're diehard women's basketball fans. If they weren't winning, if they didn't have Gino Auriemma these days, I'm not sure UConn would have nearly the fan base. Credit to the UMass fan base, credit to Cursive Few and everyone else that supports it.
Did you see the photo on X? And I don't know. I wish I could give him credit. I don't know who posted it. It wasn't a UMass fan. It was one of the old McGurk, sold out with extra seats down there. And to your point about the fans, I mean, you had UMass fans that went to school there in the 70s comment on that stuff, and then basically kids that are in school there now. Yeah. So you love that passion. And I had made the comment on there. And it was most likely BC because from 66 to 82, I believe, UMass and BC played every year. 1 year at McGurk, 1 year in Chestnut Hill. McGurk, Chestnut Hill. Phenomenal. And then in 82, Flutie played at McGurk, So, I mean, there was some good matchups. But just seeing the stadium sold out like that, man, it's like, okay, let's get back to there. And I know there's kind of probably people yelling at the pod that stadium sucks. Yeah, we know. We've talked about it forever. We'll get there. But let's win some games this year. And we might as well mention before we get out of here too, who's in the Sun Belt or not Sun Belt, who's in Conference USA this year, because Delaware and Missouri State, which we talked about, which the magazines love to rate higher, are in there. So this Conference USA this year is FIU, Florida International, Jacksonville State, Kennesaw State, Liberty, Louisiana Tech, which we talked about maybe wanting to go to Sun Belt, Middle Tennessee State, New Mexico State, Sam Houston, UTEP, their last year because they're going to the Mountain West, Western Kentucky, and now Delaware and Missouri State. So Conference USA, again, a conference fighting, adding schools to stay alive as well. But again, we talked about it. There's just going to be movement, and you just got to kind of hold on. And just the one thing you have to do, regardless of conference, regardless of realignment, root for your program, root for your school, be positive, and go and just go. Because I'm sure there's people listening to this pod that are probably other MAC school fans. And that's what I love about college football as an announcer, is just the pride, the passion, the pageantry of college football. You don't get that in the NFL. You only get it in college football. And there's nothing like it. So I love it.
Is nothing like college football. The pageantry, the atmospheres, it's amazing. So, and anyone that's, Rene, you've been optimistic. Obviously, I've gotten to know you pretty well over the last few months. He's incapable of not speaking his mind. Okay. So you don't have to worry about this. Is truly what he believes, because he will never say anything else.
If I truly thought it was going to be a shit show this year, right, I would tell you, like, for instance, I live 15 minutes from UCF. Scott Frost takes back over. When Scott Frost left here, he had an undefeated season. Remember that? So he came back, and, people get delusional, like you're going to go right back to where that is. And he was quick to say, no, we're not. And they're kind of struggling in the Big 12 with this whole money thing and the revenue share. And they got rid of their NIL as well. They're probably going to struggle this year. And I think UCF fans that are realistic know that, okay? If I thought UMass was going to really struggle this year, I wouldn't be as optimistic as I am. I just wouldn't be. I would be honest. I'd say, hey, guys, give them some time. If they can get to 3, they go 3-9. Listen, it's an improvement. They go 4-8. No. I honestly am optimistic that they can get to that 6 mark. I really am. I'm not guaranteeing it because it's football. You don't know what's going to happen, but I just have this feeling. And an update from last week too, because I did go back to Barnes & Noble. The Phil Steele magazine is out now. So it's there now. Just for the record, he went along with the other magazines we talked about last week. They have UMass 12 of 13 in the MAC. So there you go.
All right, Rene. Well, hey, man, appreciate you having me in. We already heard your story about your first class trip back from Australia or whatever, and leaving your wife and coach.
This is a cruise, so we're good. I won't do anything crazy.
Like try to record a podcast from the ship, maybe.
Well, I don't think she would actually mind, but we'll play it by ear. I'll let you guys know as we get closer.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, hey, thanks for having me, and thanks for joining us.
You got it, buddy. See you, Christian.